speaker today is Bruce Shelton. Bruce takes care of so many things around the fellowship, it's hard to track them all. He's our senior pastor. He's the head of building and grounds, president of the board of directors, and friend to everyone. But then there are the countless things that hardly anyone sees. When an airplane flies, it isn't the wings that give it lift, it's the invisible air above and below the wings. So Bruce is so often the wind beneath our wings. So please welcome our friend, our brother, our teacher, Pastor Bruce Shelton.
Thank you, Lloyd. And John, thank you for that beautiful music. It's beautiful. Okay. Well, it's indeed my pleasure to have this opportunity to talk to you this morning. And as is my tradition, I would ask that you help me with this talk. If we can all just become quiet for a few moments. And let's tune into the Spirit of God and feel God's presence in this room. And ask God to use me as His minister this morning to say the exact words you need to hear. Thank you, Lord. Okay. Let me set my timer here so I don't talk too long. Here we go. All right. Well, today we're going to take a look at the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation is that strange book found at the end of the Bible, the very last book of the Bible. And it's strange because it's filled with all this dreamlike symbology and imagery. How many people in this room have ever tried to read the book of Revelations? Raise your hands. Has everybody in this room had a hard time understanding it besides me? I mean, it's difficult. Okay, so today we're going to take a look at an interpretation of chapter 12 in Revelations, and I'm going to, as a preface to the talk, I'd like to share with you that back in 2016, I had the opportunity to go to the island of Patmos, which is a Greek island in the Aegean Sea. And this was the island where John the Apostle was banished to by the Roman authorities. John was lucky. He was put on trial along with Peter for subversive activities. Their subversive activities consisted of preaching the Christian gospel, the teachings of Christ. And that was against the law in Rome at that time because the emperor had declared himself God, and there can only be one God. And so the Christians all of a sudden became an outlawed sect. In the beginning, they actually weren't an outlawed sect, but when this new emperor took over, I'm God, so anybody that worships anybody else is going to pay for it. So Peter was sentenced to death by crucifixion, and John was banished to this island. But for an enlightened being like John, being banished to an island was actually a gift, because he had free reign in the island, and you see this with a lot of the enlightened beings. They're attracted to caves. St. Francis was like that, for example. He had these caves up in San Sebastian, in the hills right above Assisi. And then I think of Muhammad. Muhammad found this cave up above the city he lived in, and Muhammad would go there for long vigils. And he would, one night, the angel Gabriel appeared to him, and he said, write this down to Muhammad. So Muhammad didn't write the Quran. The Quran was written, he just wrote down what he was given. He always says, I'm the messenger. Don't worship me. So this happened to John. John's up in this cave, up in the mountains there, on this mountain in Patmos, and all of a sudden he's having this vision. And I visited this cave. It was really quite energetic, to put it mildly. And because so many thousands of people have come there over the years, filling it with love and prayers, seeking God. So, all right, so this is what the way the book of Revelations begins. This is what John heard. He says, Revelation 1, the revelation of Jesus Christ. So this is a revelation from Jesus, which God gave unto him to show unto us, his servants, things which must shortly come to pass. And he sent and signified it by his angel until his servant John. So this is an angel appears before John in a vision, and John starts writing it down. And it says, who bear record of the word of God and of the testimony of Jesus Christ and of all things that he saw. Okay, so that's what this book is all about. It's a revelation given to us by Jesus. Now, if you had a hard time understanding the book of Revelation, as I did, don't feel bad, because no less a great soul than Thomas Jefferson. Thomas Jefferson was really fascinating. He not only he was a Renaissance man. He studied everything, agriculture, and he was deeply interested in science. But it didn't stop there. He was also interested in religion and figuring out what life was about. And he couldn't find any substance in the theology of his church, of the Church of England. And that's one of the reasons Thomas Jefferson had such strong feelings about creating a government in which there was a separation of church and state. Because his ideology was quite different. He believed there was a deity that was in charge, that basically, he looked at the creation, he said, some deity created this. So and then he made a sincere study of the teachings of Jesus, and he could see that Jesus was one of the great teachers of all time. He focused on the ethical teachings of Jesus, such as we find in the Sermon on the Mount. And he actually wrote his own little, what he did is he took out all the miracles which a man of the Enlightenment could not accept, right? He was like the high priest of the Enlightenment, of the rational mind. He took out all the miracles and came up with what today we call the Jeffersonian Bible. But when Thomas Jefferson got to the book of Revelations, he finally threw his hands up and said, these are the delusions of a madman, right? He really couldn't get it, and that I can certainly understand. And the difference is today, over these past 250 years or so, we've had wonderful spiritual teachers who have come into the world that can actually give us really good interpretations of what all this imagery and symbology is all about in Revelation. The two that have helped me the most are Edgar Casey and Emmett Fox. You all hear me talk about Emmett Fox. Emmett Fox was this minister up in New York City in 1920s, 30s, and 40s. And his life paralleled that of Edgar Casey. Interestingly, he and Casey actually knew of each other, but they didn't know each other personally. Len would go up there to New York just to listen to his, and Edgar Casey just to listen to his talks. But so I'm going to lean heavily on, primarily on Emmett Fox's interpretation of the book 12 of Revelation today. Edgar Casey also took a great interest in Revelation. Edgar Casey read the entire Bible through, the equivalent of 1 year for every year of his life. The entire Bible from beginning to end. He was a guy that I think he had a 7th grade education, and to him the Bible was a vortex of spiritual energy, and so he talked, and a lot of his readings are laced with biblical language. But Edgar Casey he was especially attracted to Revelations, and he did a series of readings on what the imagery and the teachings of Revelation is all about. And there have been a number of books written about what Casey says about Revelation. Casey said, the visions, the experiences, the names, their churches, the places, dragons, the cities, all are but emblems of those forces that may war within the individual in its journey into the material manifestation too, the awakening in the spirit. So basically, Casey's saying that Revelation is all about the war, the battle that occurs in our own minds as we seek to find God. It's the war in our own minds between we have free will. The reason we're here, we're told, is really to learn to use our free will so that our free will is exactly in accord with the law of love, the law of God. It's all about, it all boils down to the law of love. And so we come here, and our work, you see, is to choose love rather than fear. You know, choose loving other people rather than judging other people, putting other people down, criticizing people, finding fault. No, let's find what's right about the other person. One of my favorite verses in the Bible says, God is love. He who dwells in love dwells in God, and God in him. See, if we just knew that one verse and understood it, it would be that we don't need to read anything else in the Bible, because that kind of says it all. God is love. He who dwells, and she who dwells in God dwells in love, dwells in God. So it's all about, it all goes back to love. And so we have free will, and we have, fortunately, many incarnations to get it right, because we certainly don't get it right a lot, even right in this incarnation. We certainly get lost in fear. Fear, we can define fear as being the absence of love. And so Casey described it like that. All right. Chapter 12. It starts off with this beautiful verse. It says, "And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered." So we have now this painting here, I'm sorry you guys can't see it, but I hope you can see it after the service. But this painting, I commissioned James Jacks to paint this woman, this pregnant woman, bathed in the sun, standing on the moon, where upon her head was a crown of 12 stars. Because I gave this talk back in 2016, and I actually liked it so much, I felt inspired to ask James to paint this. So this has been in my meditation room ever since, but I thought I'd share it with you today. But I'll be talking about the imagery in this painting. Okay, it starts off, "There appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun." Now, what does that mean? This is the way God sees us, okay? God sees us as beings filled with light. We are, in fact, light beings, but we've lost to the extent we've lost our connection with God, we've lost that connection, you see, with the light, you see. So this woman, the clothed in the sun, is a woman who's filled with the light of God, and her aura is just glowing. Like, instead of wanting things, see, it's just the woman is you and I. This is the most important thing to understand. This woman represents your soul and my soul when we have made our connection with God. So when that happens, the light of God shines forth from us, and we no longer want this, want that, because we have everything, you know. This is what Jesus, I think, was talking about when he says, "You are the light of the world. Let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven." So I'm looking around this room, and I'm seeing all this light from all you guys, you know, just pouring forth. It's really, really beautiful. It says she's under her, and the moon was under her feet. Now, this symbology signifies conquest, okay? She has conquered the moon. But what does that mean? Well, Emmett Fox teaches that the moon in the Bible always represents the subconscious mind. It represents your mind and my mind. It represents all the thoughts and feelings, okay? And this is of huge importance because our own mind is the biggest challenge we have, the biggest obstacle we have to finding God. It's all these negative thoughts that we have unfortunately bought into, these beliefs, that cause us to lose our connectiveness with God, okay? What am I talking about, all these beliefs? Well, for example, to the extent that we believe that we don't have enough money, you know, I just don't have enough money. I've got money, but it's not enough, right? Or I don't have any money even to pay the rent this week, right? Now, every time we feel like we've got to have more money, right? we might be making 100,000 a year, but it's not enough. Anytime we have that ego need that I need to have more, what are we doing? We're creating a god out of money. It's the equivalent of us on our altar having a dollar sign on our altar, and every time we think about I need more money, it's like falling before that altar and worshiping worshiping money, the god of money, right? Now, money is not the problem. You know, Paul said it's the love of money that's the problem, right? Very important distinction. So every time we worship that altar, what are we doing? We're strengthening our fear within us that we don't have enough money, that we have a shortage, okay? And so this is a violation of the first of the Ten Commandments, which says, thou shalt have no other gods before thee, right? The truth is, that the true belief, you see, which we finally come to, this woman has finally come to, is that there's only one power in the universe. That's truth, you see. There's only one power. There's nothing to be afraid of, ladies and gentlemen. You know? And no matter what's happening out here, you see, if we can get that connection with God, and we ask God, please help me. I've got this fear about who's going to win this election, right? I'm talking about Republicans and Democrats. We're all fearful that the other side's going to win, right? What if okay, let me take my attention. Here we've made a god out of politics, right? Let me take my attention off of my fear of who's going to win and place it upon the presence of God and realize that no matter who wins, it's okay, okay? I'm sorry to shock everybody. It's okay, you see, because at the end of the day, God is in charge. And whoever wins will have 4 years in, and then we'll have another election. And if you just believe that, it'll help you sleep a lot better at night. Because everybody's so fearful about this election, including me sometimes. I get caught up in it. And so let's take our attention and remember there's only one power. No matter what happens, everything's going to work out, okay? If you look at, I love to watch, I have YouTube, and YouTube has endless history stories about Rome and the Greeks and everything and recent history. And you see all these things happening that seem catastrophic at the time. But we go through these people go through their incarnation, you know, and here we are again, you see. So what seems catastrophic at the time, looking at the big picture, it's not that significant. All right, there's only one power. And so to conquer our minds means that we no longer get lost in all these negative thoughts that are going here, going there, telling us, you know, to worry about this, to be anxious about this, to be angry about this, to have guilt and shame in my own head about mistakes I've made, all these regrets I've got, all that negativity. When we find God, you see, and realize God is the only power, all that negativity vanishes in the same sense that dark vanishes in the presence of light, okay? So light fills me now. I'm bathed with the sun, and all these negative thoughts now, I'm the master of them, okay? I'm focused upon the presence of God. And upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Now the 12 stars represent, according to Emmett Fox, the 12 signs of the zodiac, okay? The teaching here is that each of the signs is a lesson for us to learn. And our soul goes through this series of lessons over and over and over again. And each lifetime we may focus, you see, upon one primary lesson, which is most likely our sun sign, okay? But in every lifetime, we're working on our soul. It's kind of like, it reminds me of David chipping away at a block of stone. Michelangelo chipping away at a block of stone. He says, you know, I didn't create this statue. All I'm trying to do is free David from the block of stone. That's kind of like the way we are, you see. And so we work on it. We work on these lessons, and when this woman has mastered them all, you see. So right now she's awakened, and for that reason she's wearing a crown of 12 stars, and she was pregnant with child, and was travailing to give birth. Now, this is where the plot thickens in this story. it says, "And there appeared another wonder in heaven. And behold, a great red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born." Everybody got the picture here? This red dragon, 10 horns in his head, seven heads, and each one of these heads has a crown. Now, in the Bible, red represents emotions. Okay, so this is our emotions within us that are, and red can be positive or negative. Our emotion, love is an emotion, joy is an emotion, but love can have a dark side, and so this dragon represents the dark side, with the seat of all of our fears and worries and doubts. And this dragon is ready to pounce upon the child, to devour it as soon as it's born. Now, this dragon has 10 horns, we're told. In the Bible, the horn is a symbol of power. So this is a dragon of great power. Okay, has 7 heads, meaning it's hydra-headed. You know, I deal with it's, and this dragon is within us. You see, so I deal with this fear here. Say it's the face of anxiety, right? So I slay that head, right? But then over here, the face of it's got 7 heads. The face of of anger appears, or the face of depression, right? And so it's hard to kill this dragon. Is the point here? And this is a formidable enemy. Now, this dragon represents our egos. Okay, that's really what it's all about. You know, have you ever had thoughts in your head and you're thinking, I've got this resentment towards somebody. I understand resentments are not good for me. You know, I really want to let them go. But for a few years, I kind of reinforced that resentment in my head. You know, because I had this false belief that if I let go of my hatred towards this person for something they said or did to me, that I'll be letting them off the hook. Then finally, I realized that really what happens when I let go of the resentment, I'm letting myself off the hook, you know? Okay, I want to let go of that resentment, right? And have you ever tried to do that? And how you notice how the thought will keep coming still, even when you try to let it go? The difference is now, when it comes, you have a choice. Instead of letting your ego getting lost in that resentment and reinforcing it, and then what does the mind do? It just represses it, right? And it just goes right back down within us and continues to disturb us, right? Now we have a choice. Here, God, you take this resentment. You know, I've nursed this resentment enough, and I see how toxic it is for my own mind. You take it, right? So now every time the thought comes, instead of reinforcing it, it's getting weaker and weaker because I'm no longer reinforcing it with my negative, fearful beliefs. I'm no longer violating the first commandment, right? Congratulations. So this woman has conquered her mind, and we're told that this child was born, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up into God, into his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she hath a place prepared of God, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. So you got the picture here. The child is born. The dragon, before it can devour it, God saves the child, you see. Now this child is, she was pregnant with not so much the physical being, but she was pregnant with an awareness, you see, that the Christ was within us. You see, the Christ has always been with us from the very beginning. It's never left us. What is born within us is an awareness of the presence within us. We've lost our awareness, you see. We've lost our connection, you see. So, okay, so she's aware of this, of the Christ child, but it's all new. She's just awakened. It's still in a very young stage, and it can easily be destroyed by what? The ego and the world, the collective ego of the world. And the difference here is she's got this connection with God, and God saves her. You see? So God protects you and I as we go along this spiritual path, providing we continue with our spiritual practices and keep the gates open. Now, everyone can see here, I think, the similarity between this and the nativity story of Jesus, right? This is another retelling of the nativity story. You know, Jesus was born, right, because of Mary's. Mary was the pure soul who was filled only with love. Of all the women in the world, young women in the world, she was chosen because of her purity. Because of her purity, she had union with God, and she was made pregnant with child. And the child was born, and what happened? Herod finds out about it. And Herod represents the red dragon, of course. Herod's our ego, the collective ego. And Herod orders his troops into Bethlehem to kill all the children. Because the ego knows that if this child survives, it will be destroyed. So the last thing our ego wants to do is to be destroyed. So our ego does everything it can, you see, to destroy this new awareness within us of God's presence, which is taking us over. All right, and this story kind of hits its zenith. It says, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and the angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels. And the dragon prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him." Now, this is the famous story of the apocalypse, right, that fundamentalist Christians like to talk about so much, you know. It's just in these couple of verses here. Michael, of course, represents our higher self. It's actually, Michael represents reality. You see, darkness has no reality. It's simply the absence of light, you see. So the dragon, which represents pure darkness, the shadow of darkness, right, the prince of darkness, it dissipates in the presence of light. It can't fight Michael. And Michael doesn't, it's interesting, Michael doesn't kill the dragon. He just cast it down to earth, you see. So this is the final battle that you and I go through, you see, to cleanse our minds and to be filled with God's presence. But we will win, providing, once again, that we continue with our spiritual practices and remain close to God. Now, I'm going to jump ahead here. This will be the last part of the talk here to chapter 21. We've been looking at chapter 12. Chapter 21 chapter 21 and 22 are the last two books. But this is where it all comes together. This is where all these lifetimes we've been through from Adam to Christ come together in chapter 21 with these words. "And I saw a new heaven and a new earth. For the first heaven and the first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. And I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, Behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and he will dwell with them, and they shall be his people, and God himself shall be with them, and be their God. And God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes, and there shall be no more death, neither sorrow nor crying, neither shall there be any more pain, for the former things are passed away." Thank you very much.